to go with the elders first. It's our pleasure to ask Meir Hackenbroch, please share with us on the subject of empathy in the light of Chassidus. That's your shirt.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'd like to begin by dedicating my learning and presentation tonight in honor of my father, Leo Aryeh ben Shimon, Alav Shalom, whose bar mitzvah parsha is this week, and his birthday is this Shabbos. So, may his soul have an ascent, and may his memory always be for only a blessing.
Very, very nice.
Empathy. So what does it mean? Why is it important? And what does the Torah have to say about it? And how can it change my life for the good? The Oxford English Dictionary describes it, empathy, as the ability to understand another person's feelings. Ergo, to understand another person's feelings is to empathize with them. So why is it important to empathize? There's a famous story in the Talmud where a person comes up to Rabbi Hillel and asks him, teach me the Torah on one foot. Rabbi Hillel answers him, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, and the rest is commentary. Indeed, the opening line of morning prayer and meditation is, I hereby take upon myself the positive mitzvah of to love your fellow as yourself. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So what does it mean, then, therefore, to love your fellow as yourself? Well, let's look at another story. Joseph, the viceroy of all of Egypt. The son of Jacob, left for dead in a pit by his own brothers. Many years pass, and as the dramatic story goes on, there's a famine in the land, and Jacob sends his sons to Egypt to plead for grains and sustenance for him to survive. The family does not know that Joseph is alive, least alone the viceroy of Egypt, second right-hand man to Pharaoh. Joseph's youngest brother, Benjamin, at the dramatic conclusion, meets face to face with Joseph, and they cry on each other's neck. Now the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos goes into a detailed explanation as to why the neck and why they crying. Well, I find the first thing I found surprising to me was that he said they're not crying out of remorse or guilt or even out of forgiveness. I would think, they were, I just see him, I can't believe I did this to you. But no, he says that they're crying rather out of empathy, meaning that they both foresaw the destruction, one of the Beis HaMikdash, and secondly of the sanctuary, on each other's territorial lands. So the land of Israel was divided up into tribal territories. One of them was Joseph, and the other one was Benjamin. And they were crying because they were both had prophecy, nevuah, that they would both be destroyed. And they were crying out of it on each other because neither of them could do something about it. That's why they were crying, that they couldn't help each other any more than that. And then when Joseph goes to tell his father that about what happened, Yaakov doesn't even, his father Jacob, their father Jacob, doesn't even react, doesn't cry, does nothing. He just says the Shema, and he says it uninterrupted. Unbelievable. You would think first time that he's seeing his son, thought he was left for dead. Not even hello, not even, he's in the middle of Shema, it can't be interrupted right now. So what does this teach us? It teaches that there's a time to cry and there's a time for action. And while certainly crying triggers a certain feeling of relief, cuts the tension. But there is a point where action is called is the call. And if the issue is yours, then you need to help yourself first instead of crying over it. A classic example, let's say, would be on an airplane. Instead of everybody's panicking and due to crazy turbulence and the oxygen masks are dropping from the ceiling, what does the person do? Instead of running up and down the aisles panicking, sit down, take the oxygen mask, put it on yourself first. Help yourself first. Then you can help others. Therefore, how do we come to this understanding, which brings us to our original question? What does ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha mean? How can you love your fellow like you love yourself? First, you have to love yourself. It's easier said than done. So far, it's easier to help others than it is to help yourself, because we very easily see other people's faults and we judge them from our standing point. But it's much harder to help ourselves. So therefore, it's a tall task to love your fellow like yourself. And my father liked to say, one of his favorite expressions was, you can take the horse to the water trough, but you can't force him to drink, he would say. So therefore, the crying certainly cuts the tension and helps, but is only a stepping stone to the true redemption. And if done too much, it can lead to despair. Certainly, that is never an answer. In chapter 30 of Tanya, our sages discuss the verse, judge not your fellow until you have stood in his place. So what does his place mean? That certainly, if you see somebody that is doing something that you find, how could we do that? You know, this person is of such a stature. It's okay for me to do that. I'm not holding in that place, but for him. So it's very easy for us to be on high horse and judge. It says, you don't know what that person went through. And for even a person that looks in a way, talks in a way, and acts in a certain way, let's say if his actions are not in accordance with his look, you would say this person is a fraud. Says the Tanya, not so. This person's not a fraud. This person has a struggle just like anyone else. He's a human. So I think all this has come to light at this time due to the recent events, first in Meir, where what happened was a lack of Havas Yisrael, in my perspective. It was, to put it simply, one Jew was stepping over another Jew. And a lot of people can judge, oh, how could those people, we don't know what it was like. And we're not there. It's very easy to judge and say, oh, these people claim to be. We need Havas Yisrael. That's the solution. For he said, or Bill said, that's all the Torah on one foot. And if we know that is the that if all we need to have is the Havas Yisrael, and then the rest comes from it, then surely that can rebuild our third temple through our own love for one another. May be very speedy in our times. Amen.
Hello. Hi, Meir.
Hello.
For giving us that very rounded view, very empathetic description of empathy. Meaning it. This comes from the heart, not just from the mind. It's very nice, and thank you. We appreciate it.